Good evening. I'm Justin Chang, film critic for the Los Angeles Times, and welcome to week 2 of the Ultimate Summer Movie Showdown, the LA Times series where you get to choose the greatest summer movies of all time. With theaters closed and major Hollywood releases being held back due to the COVID-19 pandemic, my Times colleagues and I asked ourselves, what if instead of having the worst summer movie season ever, we polled our readers and came up with the ultimate summer movie season, singling out the best movies from each week of release, going back to 1975, the summer of a little movie called Jaws. Here's how it works. Each week for 16 weeks, we are pooling some of the best or most memorable big movies from each week of release, going back to 1975. And we're letting all of you, LA Times readers, Twitter voters, and everyone in between, vote for your favorite in a series of head-to-head contests posted on my Twitter account at Justin C. Chang. The winner will be the subject of a retrospective piece in the Times and a video discussion like this one. Last week, week 1, we talked about your winning favorite, the 2012 Disney Marvel blockbuster, The Avengers. This week, week 2, you voted once more, and the movie you chose was Bridesmaids, the 2011 Paul Feig directed comedy starring and co-written by Kristen Wiig, which narrowly edged out The Fifth Element in the polls. Bridesmaids premiered at the 2011 South by Southwest Film Festival and was released by Universal Pictures on May 13th of that year to enthusiastic reviews and more than $288 million in domestic box office. The cast included Maya Rudolph, Rose Byrne, Wendy McLendon-Covey, Ellie Kemper, Jill Clayburgh, Rebel Wilson, and, in a performance that earned her a richly deserved Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, Melissa McCarthy. Wiig and co-writer Annie Mumolo also received Oscar nominations for their original screenplay. Tonight, I am delighted to be talking about Bridesmaids with some very special guests, and I'm going to bring the first of them on now. Please join me in welcoming my colleague, Mary McNamara, Pulitzer Prize-winning culture columnist and critic for the Los Angeles Times. Mary, welcome to the Ultimate Summer Movie Showdown live chat. So great to have you with us.
Hi, Justin. It's so good to see you.
I know.
I'm really
We
happy
haven't seen each other since our last
months.
meeting for work. But in person, it has been longer. Well, thank you so much for joining me to talk about a movie that I know we both love. I mean, I saw it back in 2011. I rewatched it recently for the first time in 9 years, and I loved it all over again. When did you last see it, and what did you think?
Well, in our family, we watch it fairly regularly. It's a crowd pleaser, so I think I've seen it like in the last month or so because we've been, needing those lifts from movies that we know we love. So and it's holds up every time. I love it to death. When I saw that it was coming down between it and The Fifth Element, I was like, if Bridesmaids doesn't win, I don't know what I'm going to do.
I believe you said it'd be rigged if it didn't win. Clearly, well, it won,
Okay.
and
You and I would have had to have some serious conversations about how the voting was going.
Blame my Twitter followers, but I would have been with you. I mean, I don't always agree with the People's Choice, but in this case, I wholeheartedly do. I want to start really quickly with the first thing most people think about when they hear Bridesmaids. And of course, I'm talking about the notorious scene in which the bride-to-be, Lillian, played by Maya Rudolph, her maid of honor, Annie, played by Kristen Wiig, and the other bridesmaids make the mistake of eating some bad Brazilian food and wind up befouling a pristine white bridal boutique. I think, for better or worse, this is a scene that we often think about when we hear Bridesmaids. Mary, some people love the scene, some people hate it. I love it myself. I think it works beautifully in the film and on multiple levels. What's your reaction to it?
Oh my God, I love it. It's, it's gross and hilarious, and the women are hilarious. So it isn't really because all of it is done sort of through facial expressions and the sounds. So it's not visually gross. But the thing with when she sinks to the street in the bride's dress and just saying it's happening, it's like it's everybody's nightmare. It's just and the juxtaposition of the beautiful boutique and what is going on is, we still quote Melissa McCarthy, "Don't look at me, don't look at me," in our family. It's like absolutely. one of the best lines in movie history.
Yeah, it's that scene that you mentioned with her. It's a very poetic image, actually. It's hilarious. It's absolutely heartbreaking at the same time. And for a movie that really sends up the, among other things, the lavish absurdities of the wedding industrial complex, I think it's only too fitting that this is that this is what happens in the movie. Well, we will hear. I want to hear from our wonderful guests, and I don't want to keep our viewers waiting much longer. So it is time to bring them in. We are so thrilled to be joined tonight by Annie Mumolo, the Oscar-nominated co-writer of Bridesmaids. You've also seen her as an actor in television and movies, including The Boss, Bad Moms, and of course, Bridesmaids. Hello, Annie, welcome. And we are also joined by Kristen Wiig. Hello. The star and Oscar-nominated co-writer of Bridesmaids. You may also know her from Saturday Night Live, of course. Not you may, you completely know her, which she just hosted this past week. And you know her also from terrific movies, including The Skeleton Twins, Welcome to Me, and Hate Ship, Love Ship. We're so delighted and grateful to have them here with us. Kristen and Annie, welcome to the LA Times Ultimate Summer Movie Showdown.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's a joy to have you. You know, it means a lot to us that you would join us to talk about this movie, just amid the craziness that is our lives at this point. We've all, you know, some of us, a lot of us have been at home rewatching Bridesmaids this past week. I wanted to see what you guys are doing and how are you both? Kristen, I know post SNL, how is life under quarantine treating you right now?
It's day by day. I think that's kind of how everyone's feeling. I mean, it's good. It's you know, you have to find some things to do, and we're still working. We're still in post for our next movie, so we've actually been working most every day, but we're hanging in.
Great. And Annie, how about you? How are you doing?
I think I have a delay. Do I have a delay? Or can you guys?
We all probably have a little delay, but I can hear you just fine. So go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I'm losing it. I gotta be honest. Being on quarantine is a great challenge. But yeah, we're just kind of, you know, it's kind of like Groundhog Day. Every day getting up and wondering if anything's going to be different. And but we're, you know, I'm homeschooling and working, and that it's not easy.
No. I have a 3-year-old and I'm failing miserably on the homeschooling front, but it's okay. She'll be fine. I know
she won't remember it. It's crazy.
She won't remember it. No, she's having the time of her life. You know, more so than we are.
What you need is a 13-year-old. I have a 13-year-old. That's what you need. They will remember.
I have one of those too. Yes, I have a 13-year-old.
Isn't it great? It's good.
Oh,
it's like, you know, they need to call the school year now. Just call it.
Yeah. Please call the school year. Yeah, it's oh, we have, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I know you've been hard at work on your new movie, Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, which is opening next year. You know, even though production has shut down, you guys haven't. How is it going? And can you tell us anything about the movie at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, editing over email and FaceTime is really challenging, but we've kind of figured out a system. It's not ideal, but I mean, we're not complaining. We're really excited for it to come out, and yeah, it's about two middle-aged women that live in a small Midwestern town who live a pretty sheltered life, and they go on their first vacation, and they get sort of tangled in a villain's plot, and it's really silly and fun, and we have an amazing cast, and Jamie Dornan is hilarious in it, and yeah, we're excited for it to come out.
Well, we're very excited to see it. Excited to see more new movies in general. Can't wait to get back to that. Congratulations to you both. Times readers and film Twitter denizens chose Bridesmaids to win the second week of this 16-week series. Bridesmaids beat out Friday the 13th, Twister, the 2009 Star Trek, Neighbors, and in second place, The Fifth Element. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, you know, Mary, you love, yeah. I mean, would you have voted for The Bridesmaids or The Fifth Element if you had to vote? Would you have been, yeah.
Oh, that's a toughie.
It was tough for a lot of our readers, but you know, Annie, Kristen, you know, it's been 9 years. How does it feel to know just that the movie is this beloved 9 years later?
It's weird. I mean, it's great, but yeah, it's like when you make something, you never know how it's going to be received. that's just kind of part of our job. You just show up and do your thing, and you just put it out in the world and kind of wait to see what happens. And it's been amazing that this movie is still, you know, being talked about and people watch it and love it, and we feel really grateful for that. It's weird from our end because we just don't have like perspective on it, you know. And we had so much fun writing it and making it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
This delay makes
No, I was just like Kristen's answer was. She said it. She said it all. So.
Said it. Yeah. You know, the main character in Bridesmaids, of course, played by Kristen. Her name is Annie. There are elements of both of you, it feels like, in the character just by that alone. Can you talk about just your collaboration, your friendship, how long you've known each other, and how long when you started working together? Yeah.
Annie, you want to take this one?
Okay, sure, yeah. Well, we met at the Groundlings Theater in Los Angeles. We were doing sketch comedy together. And at the Groundlings, they kind of, you're in this big group, and then they just say, you know, go off and write with whoever you want and whoever you can, and then come in on Wednesday and bring everything you've written with the people you've partnered up with, and then we'll put up your stuff and we'll decide what goes in the show. And so you quickly kind of learn who you work well with and who, you know, it's you just see who you have the chemistry with. And I think pretty quickly, right off the bat, Kristen and I just like not only learned that we had the same really similar sense of humor, but that it's bizarre, but also that we had like success together putting our stuff in the shows and stuff. So we just ended up writing together a lot. And I think my favorite sketches were with her, with Kristen. And then from there, we just, you know, it's really where it started. And that we've now that's been, I don't want to say how long, but it's been a while since we've known each other a long time.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
We do all of
and
our
you two are
together. Like, oh no, sorry, go ahead.
No, please, Kristen, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, when we started writing Bridesmaids together, I was in New York, she was here. We wrote, you know, on Skype a little bit, but we really found that it was best when we were in person because we were playing off each other. We were sort of improvising. We aren't that sort of writing team that's like, okay, you do 5 pages and send it to me or whatever. We really write everything together. And I think that's, I don't know, for me, it's like the most fun thing because even when something doesn't work, it's fun and we laugh. But
yeah.
It's easy, and there's never, I don't know, we have this like language between each other where it's not like we shut something down, or if we it was like, no, I don't like that, or I don't like that. Okay, moving on, and blah blah blah, or that's funny, that's good, or yeah, let's do that. It's just I don't know. It's so easy.
Yeah, I feel
Great.
sort of like a lucky. Oh, sorry, this delay is throwing me off. It feels like a kind of a lucky relationship that you find in your life because, like writing with Kristen, the stuff we do together, it's one of the most joyous aspects of my life, and it's so it just almost it feels like sort of like a lucky thing that we met each other, that we found each other. Found each other.
Huh.
That sounded romantic. It's not.
But it's not.
Well, this movie feels like a love story on multiple levels. And Annie, you are in a scene in Bridesmaids playing the nervous plane passenger who shares Kristen's fear of flying. Just quickly, can you talk about that scene and how you envisioned it, crafted it? Was it envisioned with you taking on that role from the beginning?
I think it was. I had originally had a role as a bridesmaid, and I unexpectedly got pregnant, and I couldn't do the role. So we changed up the roles and those roles. But then because I couldn't do it, Judd said, our producer Judd Apatow said, write something else for yourself, and we didn't really know what that was going to be, and we kind of had sort of forgotten about it. And then when we wrote the airplane scene, when we were sitting doing it, I think as we were doing it, we realized, oh, that should be the one that I should do. And we actually had a whole other sequence in place of the airplane sequence that was in the movie that we pulled at the very last minute. And so we actually had to write the airplane scene in I think 2 or 3 days. It happened really fast. And but when we were writing it, it just kind of found its way to me, I suppose.
Yeah. I know you were talking about the writing process, and there are elements of improvisation, of course, in your work, as there isn't a lot of comedy. And I know that improvisation is not always what a lot of us think it is, especially those of us who are not comedians. But can you talk about just that interplay of just this very strong story and script with that spontaneity and that you get with improv? And is there a scene in particular, like the toast scene, which is just one wonderful riff after another, when she is when Helen and Annie are taking turns toasting Lillian? Was that a moment in which improv played a particular part, or am I totally off base?
No, we just kept going on stage, and it was a night shoot. I remember it was like kind of in the beginning of the shoot, and we were really starting to get our sort of groove, because I mean, this was our first movie. It was the first movie I'd ever starred in, and we were nervous, and it was like this huge deal for us. And I do remember that scene in particular, where scripted, I would go up, then Rose would go up, and I would go up, and Rose would go up, and we just kept going. And that was like one of the best nights for me, because it was one of the first nights, we sort of like let go. And Rose is so funny in that scene. She's such a good improviser.
So funny.
And yeah, I mean, I think that people think the definition of improv is just like, make 'em ups, where the director's just like, go talk, and then two people just sort of like start talking. And it's always based on something. Like, you could say, okay, I'm going to the grocery store, and then the director would be like, just say you're going somewhere else. So they're not making up the information that they're going somewhere, they're making up the specifics to it. That's a weird example. But so we encouraged a lot of improv, because we wanted people to put certain things in their own words. And we sort of had a system with Paul where we would shoot it scripted, but just like, relaxed about it, put it in your own words. And then Paul would always say, okay, I forget what his term was, not free for all. It was like, I forget what the term was.
Oh,
kind of like,
yeah, what was it?
it was.
We'll remember it, but it's
Oh, anyway,
like
just could
one,
like
one for
say,
you.
yeah, one for you. So it just kind of invites this nice, like, I don't know, it's like a collaborative element to the set, and everyone's laughing and everyone feels like they have their moment. And we had a lot of really good improvisers in the movie, and we wanted to showcase that. And at the same time, we worked from the script every day. So
Bridesmaids arrived in the middle of what seems now like an even more ludicrous debate over the question of, can women be funny? It just seems beyond ridiculous to me, especially in 2020, that people think this discussion is even a thing. Oh, there you are. Sorry, I know. I want to do the same thing. Bridesmaids did do its part to correct some thinking on this issue, and of course, there have been movies. There were movies before Bridesmaids, and there certainly were after that also helped steer things right. But was that surprising to you that your movie became such a cornerstone of that discussion? And Mary, if you have any thoughts on this too, I'd love, or not, or if you on this.
Oh, I have
debate,
so many thoughts.
maybe later.
go, Mary.
Mary, go.
It's like so ridiculous. And one of the things that I hated about some of the early adulation for Bridesmaids was there was like this level of surprise that a cast that was all female had made this funny movie. And like that sort of almost ruined it for me for like a few minutes because it was just so infuriating. And fortunately, that was relatively short lived because as soon as like people saw those kinds of comments in print, everybody like lost it. And then we started talking about Bridesmaids as we should talk about Bridesmaids, which is a really funny, smartly written, well acted movie that doesn't have to stand for anything except that. So, I mean, in that it helped maybe, put a period mark on the end of that conversation. I'm thrilled. I'm not sure that it did. I think that female-led comedies still have to struggle to get made in both film and television, and that female ensemble movies still have to struggle in a way that male ensemble movies do not. But every little victory helps, and so thank you, ladies, for having a victory and helping. But I'm sorry you had to put up with that crap around your movie.
It's kind of like
very surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a compliment and an insult all rolled up in one, because we are constantly inspired by women comedians and people that we grew up watching and people that inspired us to do improv in the first place. And then it's like it's a hard thing to respond to. Again, it's hard to have perspective on how the movie changed things, but I don't know if it did as much as, that we still have a long way to go for sure.
But also, I think we were surprised that because we hadn't occurred to us that these comments would come up or arise. We actually didn't know that there was a question of, can women be funny, until like right before the movie came out, I think, and maybe right after it came out. But there were so many female comedic forces that came before us that we were inspired by, and so it did not occur to us at all until those questions came up. Like, sort of came up right around the release of the movie, and it's pretty surprising to us.
Yeah, and I wanted to, Mary and I had talked about the famous, infamous fitting scene, which we saw an image from that early in the show. And I know, Kristen, I know you've spoken about this and how that was not part of your original vision for the movie. And if you don't mind my asking, I have to say I love the scene. I think it works beautifully. I think I also completely understand what I read as your reservations about the way the gendered expectations of raunchiness and who is allowed to be raunchy and do we have to be raunchy in order to prove anything. I think that there is a wonderful subtlety. I don't want to use the word delicacy to describe, which is an odd word to think of in a scene where half the cast is experiencing mass incontinence. But that's one of the miracles of that scene and of the movie. This is a question, I guess, for both of you. 9 years later, this scene has become, tied to the film. It's become the stuff of movie legend. Do you look back on it more warmly now, the same, better or worse?
Well, like Annie mentioned, we had a whole different second act to the movie, and the process to getting the movie made was about 4 years. Is that right, Annie? Was it 4 years? 5 years?
Yeah,
something like that. And it, you do rewrites. You're always trying to punch it up, but it was always like we were working on the first act and the third act, and the second act was always like, okay, well, we know that works. That was what the table reads. We just kind of like left that alone, and it was basically all of us going to Vegas, and then some movies came out where people went to Vegas, and we went into like, oh no, what do we do? Like, we still need some sort of big something to happen in the middle of the movie. And we had kind of figured out that she had oh wait, I'm talking about the wrong part.
Oh yeah, you're thinking you're thinking of the airplane scene. That's when we replaced the airplane. We wrote for years on this thing. We have many versions in our in our brains. No, but I know what you're saying. You're talking about what it originally was, what that scene was.
Why?
Go ahead, but it was the one.
Yeah. And
so there was an original scene.
Yeah, because originally we went in to the dress shop, and I looked in the mirror, and I loved this dress that I had on, and I had a fantasy. I went into this like sort of fantasy dream state where I'm at this like beautiful party. It's like a perfume ad, and I'm wearing this dress, and all these men are attracted to me, and they start coming towards me, and I have to run out of the house to get rid of all the men, and there's a cabin in the woods, and Christian Bale is there. We wrote Christian Bale in the script, and he's there, and he's like chopping wood, and I'm like, I need to get away from all these men, and he says like, quick, jump into my muscles. And then we're like lying on a bearskin rug, and he's brushing my hair. Anyway, we had this like whole fantasy thing, and then I walk out, and they want to go with this other dress, and so that was sort of like me losing, but it wasn't losing in front of the other girls. So we really wanted to find something that was like, okay, we need to have Annie fail in front of everyone, to have Lillian be upset, to be embarrassing. And I think it was Judd's idea, right, Annie?
Yeah. He said, yeah, it was his idea. He said and let's try to go for some harder comedy.
Yeah. And so, but he was great about it. We were like, well, we really want to see like a lot of,
yeah. I think
just
his,
like, right, I think his of it. So we thought the funny part was right before you get sick, and like what happens and how you feel and how you act. Like, what are those moments sort of right before? I mean, you end up seeing it happen, but we really want to lean into that. Go ahead.
And it's women, it's just people trying to pretend that they're not sick. That horrifying thing of, you don't want everyone to know what's going on inside your body, and then trying to play it off and all of that, and how it's just trying to pretend that it's not happening.
Yeah, everyone in that scene is just bringing their A game. Everyone in the movie, Melissa McCarthy, of course, who making her first major impression in a comedy film, Rose Byrne. I feel like Wendy McLendon Covey and Ellie Kemper never get as much love as they should for their roles as well. The late Jill Clayburgh, your mom in this movie, Kristen, who sadly died before being able to see the finished film.
Yeah.
And, but this wonderful cast of actors, and I'd love to hear just you talk about any of them that you would like to, both of you. But that obviously starts with the writing, and everyone in this movie creates an impression. Chris O'Dowd and John Hamm as well. Just that juggling act of making sure that everyone has their moment to shine is pretty remarkable, and I imagine really difficult given how many permutations and that the script went through.
Well, yeah, Annie and I started writing sketch comedy at the Groundlings, and you do sort of write that way where you want everyone to have, their moment and their laugh. Like it just makes sense to us as writers to do that and to give that. And we got so lucky with this cast that Wendy we've known for a really long time from the Groundlings, and we wrote that part for her. I mean, she's one of the funniest people that I know.
Wendy is so incredible. We had her story and her character, and we knew exactly what we wanted her character to be saying and doing. I mean, we really, but she is someone that in any situation, in any, like when you're, characters storytelling, you could literally just turn her loose and she will give 100 versions of the something, each one new and different and fresh and hilarious without pause. She's really incredible. And Ellie was a surprise to us because we hadn't personally known her, and she came in and was a very similar thing where she was just amazing. I mean, she just like took the role and just became the role, and just she was like a loaded, I mean, she's like a loaded gun. She was amazing too, and she was someone that we didn't know before, so we felt very lucky to have met her and have her in the movie.
Yeah, and we knew Melissa from the Groundlings as well, and we had worked with her for years, and brought her in for the role, and obviously I think she did an amazing job. That was just gave her the floor, and she would just go. And Rose too. I mean, I had never met Rose, and I remember Rose. We all had rehearsals beforehand, all of us. And I remember Rose came in, and we just were staring at her. We're like, "Wow, you're really beautiful." And we were like,
"She's so beautiful."
So I mean, in real life, you just kind of like stare at her. And we got so lucky. I mean, they all just brought this thing that we could never have imagined. And we did a lot of rehearsals. We improvised scenes just between characters to get into the characters that weren't even in the movie. And we got so lucky.
Yeah.
I think after making the movie, I think we learned. Oh yeah, of course, Chris O'Dowd. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was another one.
Wow.
Chris was another one that we didn't know Chris before, obviously, but he, we knew what we wanted the essence of the character to be. We knew what we wanted it to be, but we couldn't quite. We were sort of like just searching and searching, and he walked in, and his take. I mean, he just like blew everybody out of the water right away. He was like, he walked his audition. Yeah.
Like, but kept coming in, and then, oh, sorry, go ahead. The delay.
No, you go ahead. I know.
Oh no, it was
go ahead.
We had been auditioning people sort of all day, and then when he was done, we were just like, okay, thank you. And we all just like kind of looked at each other, and he left the room, and we were like, my God. It
Yeah.
was like
And
not even, it was crazy.
yeah,
All fell in love with him.
it was immediate. And when you're writing, like with studios and stuff, they always want you to think about names when you're writing it. Who's going to play this and who's going to play this? And we had such a strong sense of what we wanted for the character, but when we were thinking of names, we just couldn't quite ever land on a name actor that where we were like, oh yeah, that person is this character's that person. Or and we were always kind of just jumbling around with it. And I mean, it was it was a nice miracle, because when he walked in, it was just like it was instantaneous. And yeah, that was a great moment.
Yeah. Annie and Kristen, I know you both have to go shortly, and you've been so generous with your time and your insights and your anecdotes. This will be my last question. Bridesmaids is, of course, a very funny comedy. Watching it again after a while, it struck me even more as just a uniquely emotionally honest and resonant and piercingly sad sometimes movie about midlife disappointment, about friendship, and about class. I think that this is, I don't think Hollywood movies sometimes tell us enough about class and money and how that intersects with friendship. And to the point where, I mean, to simply classify it just as a comedy strikes me as a disservice almost. Is that something you had set out to do, or did and I know that the movie changed a lot over those 4 years, but to me, I after seeing it again, I thought this was one of the best dramas I'd seen in a while. So
That's so nice.
Well, to me, and I know to Kristen, my the people that I've considered, well, in our business, your mentors are people you don't know because you watch them in movies, or people that you see but my inspirations, I guess, their comedy, to me, the best comedy comes from real emotion and from tragedy, sadly. But I know that the entire time when we were writing this, our biggest the thing we had felt the strongest about was making sure that we had her emotional story, that we never compromised it, and that we leaned hard into the realities and all of the truth, the hard truths and realities and the tragedies of the Annie's life and character and all the characters. If it doesn't come from a real place, a real emotional place, I think you risk the comedy just not resonating, or just being forgettable, or you just, oh, it's silly, but it's not. To me, the ones that resonate with me the most, they come from tragedy, and the little tragedies of life.
Yeah, and
I hope that makes sense.
When writing, that made total sense. When writing, it's like, something that we learned is, if you don't care about the character, you're not going to laugh as hard at the joke. And I think sometimes in writing comedies, especially studios are kind of like joke, where are the jokes? But if you don't set up that a character feels something, or is going to lose something, or is struggling with something, or comes from some certain place, or if it's love or friendship or whatever it is, the jokes sometimes don't hit as hard. And I don't know, I just think that's something that, because Annie and I, coming from writing sketch comedy, we're very character based, and we kind of like start with the characters, and that helps with the dialogue, that helps with the joke, and now I'm rambling, but because it's funny.
No, it's someone true though.
Was that I was so excited to meet, and she was like, oh my God, you're on SNL. She's like, oh, she's like, your characters. She's like, all your characters are so sad. And I was like, at first I was like, oh no, and then I was like, well, I really started to think about it. I was like, well, yeah, maybe they're kind of like the losers in the room that you don't want to talk to, sort of thing. And And then you think like, oh, that's sort of where the comedy comes from. It's from, you know, it has to come from like a deep place, you know. Not to get
I think it really no, but it does have to come from a real human emotion
Yep.
To resonate or to be as I guess to be as effective in the storytelling. I think it just and that's why I think many comedic actors are such good dramatic actors, because you have to tap into things that it's deeper than what it appears to be.
Yeah. Well, and Kristen, if you'll let me say so, I mentioned at the top of the show, Welcome to Me and Hate Ship, Love Ship in particular. I think you're just a master.
Wow, no one ever mentioned
weaving that. I know, and I say that because I hope people looking for things to stream right now, please, I'll say them again, Welcome to Me, Hate Ship, Love Ship, The Skeleton Twins, watch, not as well known as Bridesmaids, sadly, but you blend that pathos and that humor. It's just, it infuses so much of what you do. And and I know we're out of time with you both, but thank you so much for your beautiful film about friendship, and which is a testament to yours as well. Thank you so much for being with us here, and congratulations. And I wish you health and happiness during this extraordinary time we're in. So.
Yes. Oh, you too.
Thank you.
Stay safe and
you too.
Healthy. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Justin.
Bye.
Okay.
Are they leaving now? Okay.
It's just us now. That was great.
Well, I just wanted to say something, and I wish I had said this while they were still here. You were saying that when you think of Bridesmaids, you think of that scene in the dress store. And for me, when I think of Bridesmaids, I think of the scene when Melissa McCarthy comes to Annie and says, "You're sitting here moping like you don't have any friends, but here's a friend. Here's a friend who cares about you." And then she starts going off on what she had to put up with, as I had firecrackers thrown at my head, and it was not easy for me. I mean, it was hilarious, but the bottom line was, there are people who care about you and you're pushing them away, and then feeling sorry that nobody cares for you. And who does that not resonate with? Like every single person on the planet, certainly with me. So anyway, that's what I think of when I think of Bridesmaids. Even though the scene was hilarious.
I concur, and I think that scene it's one of the great pep talk scenes. And there's that great line in it where she says, "Annie, you're your problem." I'm paraphrasing. "You're your problem, and you're also your solution," which I think is something we all, as you say, could stand to hear and absorb that lesson. I mean, it really is funny to think, Melissa McCarthy, received an Oscar nomination for this role, and which in itself is a rare recognition of an actor in a mainstream comedy rather than in a prestige film. That alone showed you just how the breakthrough that this movie represented. And I wanted to talk really quickly, Mary. I know since then, of course, she's done such great work and earned another Oscar nomination for her wonderful performance in Can You Ever Forgive Me? But I know we're both fans of Spy. Which reunited her, as did The Heat, with Bridesmaids director Paul Feig. This is another one that I need to revisit. I absolutely adore this movie, and I think it's one of the few action comedies that actually works on both levels, and therefore more levels than that even. Yeah, is Spy something? Do you guys watch this in your household also every few months?
Oh my God. I watch Spy all the time, and I have Spy. Spy is like one of those movies where there is no mood that I am not in that Spy will not improve tremendously. And so it's just a question of making sure that I don't watch it twice in a week, because then I won't appreciate it as much. And I feel the same way almost about The Heat. I love The Heat, but I think Spy for me is it just hits that sweet spot of silliness, but also that very important message of believing in yourself, and not selling yourself short. And Allison Janney has that wonderful line when she's finding out, why have you not been in the field? And she's like, oh, because he said blah blah blah. And Allison Janney just goes, women. And it's I think that to myself, if I could have Allison Janney sitting just saying that, when you're about to do something like say, oh no, 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 it's okay. I that was okay, even though it wasn't okay. So that's why I loved it. But is that a summer movie? Like, were those movies summer movies? I can't even remember. Isn't that terrible? Because we could totally put those in this mix.
I can't remember. I mean, I remember Spy also followed the Bridesmaids trajectory. I think of it. I saw it at South by Southwest, and then I guess it would have opened
Okay.
during. I think a few months later in the summer. I need to check the exact date, but oh god, yeah, that should be eligible and then some for sure.
I mean, I don't think
Um,
that it will like win because not enough people have the appropriate appreciation for it. But it is and and the whole cast, Rose Byrne is in it. What's her
oh
face?
god, so good.
Miranda Hart is in it. She's hilarious. Jason Strathern is in it. Hilarious. They're all. I mean, it's just like, and you get to go to Paris, and
That's
it's just a perfect movie.
it's so funny because that is one of Jason Statham's best roles ever. I mean, and he's
Oh my god,
someone that you
he's
sometimes
so
associate with maybe somewhat indifferent, clunky action derivative vehicles. But that movie it let him sing in such an inspired way. I mean, he has that endless riff that he does on have you ever I'm not even going to try to imitate it. I can't do the accent.
Well, and
Although I do have
no,
the hair. Don't
but like
I?
face-off machine. I know there's a face-off machine. I mean, it's hilarious. It's everything about it. Now I'm gonna have to go watch it tonight.
Indeed. Indeed, we must. Well, on the subject of what we're watching, and I just have one or two questions for you since I have you, and I'm so grateful that you joined me for this live chat. You've been writing so much about life, living with COVID-19, and from a cultural standpoint, raising families during this time, balancing that and with what we're watching and all the stuff to catch up on, even though it's difficult to because we have so much time and yet we have no time at all. And that just sort of whiplash that we're all going through. You're writing so brilliantly about that. And I know you wrote a column about all the British television you can catch up on, which I need to do as well in my copious free time. But how has your TV watching and movie watching changed, if at all? I mean, as a film critic, of course, I'm not going to screenings, so I am watching more, Netflix and Criterion Channel and such. But has it made a huge difference for you? And what is the best show or movie you've watched recently?
I just sort of copped to this in column I did. It's terrible because shifting from being a TV critic to not being a TV critic, you like you don't have time to watch all the TV. Now you're a normie complaining about how there's too much television. And so I at first thought, oh well, I will be able to watch all the television that I haven't been able to catch up on. And I just found emotionally I needed to watch things that I knew were good already. So I've been doing a lot of rewatching of series, and I finally had to like sort of pep talk myself out of that because I realized it really came down to in this time of hideous uncertainty that I couldn't take anymore. Like I couldn't even take the idea of watching an episode of television and then realizing I don't like it. So brave of me. So so I've just now started like watching some new shows, and but before that I really was just kind of wallowing in all my British television, which is my go-to. Like when I need, I will watch Foyle's War until my husband like says I'm going to have to take you to a psychiatrist because you need to get out of World War II. Um, Mercifully, PBS just had a new World War II series, which was very good, which Helen Hunt is in, which it was that made it worth watching anyway. So I would, and now I'm like the world on fire. I was like, oh my god, I don't have the name. And I would recommend that. That was, and also good perspective because it's kind of like, okay, it's bad, but we're not living through the Blitz. There are no Nazis, beating on people's doors. So it's good to be reminded of how lucky we are, even in this very weird and terrible time. And of course, I'm speaking as somebody who is healthy and hasn't had any member of my family not be healthy. So I do know that it's worse for some people, but you know what I mean? It does give us some perspective. Um, other than that, rewatching Parks and Rec, The Office, just like everybody else. And what are you watching? Are you watching TV? Are you finally discovering TV?
TV. What's that? No, I've been trying to be, but it's so hard. I don't know how critics and columnists like you can do it, just toggling between the two, and theater as well. Some colleagues of mine. I mean, I'm trying to watch more. We are very slowly going through Schitt's Creek, which I know we're way behind on that, but really enjoying it. Sometimes it's all after we put our 3-year-old to bed. It's all we can stand to throw on, and it's very, very, and there is a fitting quality to that too. When you're watching a family adapting to a strange new living situation in close quarters, I guess, that is taken on maybe a resonance that its makers did not expect. And I know the show has ended now, and we're really enjoying it. And so looking forward to finishing that sooner rather than later. I'll put in a little plug. The best movie I've seen recently is Driveways, this lovely independent drama, which you can stream pretty much anywhere now, and you should. It's directed by Andrew Ahn, lovely 3-character piece, and it including Hong Chow, Lucas J, and one of the last screen performances by the great Brian Dennehy, who died in April. And it's the movie. It could not be a more fitting or poignant farewell to him. He was an actor, of course, so deservedly acclaimed in theater and in television. Did not get his proper due in movies, I feel. So that is a movie I do recommend for everyone. Well, Mary, one last question. Since this is the ultimate summer movie showdown, and I want to ask, what is your favorite summer movie of all time? And I know it's hard sometimes to remember release dates, or is there maybe it doesn't even have to be during that summer. That kind of movie. Is there one that you hold dear above all others, or just even an experience?
Oh yeah, I think you know what I'm going to say, Justin Chang. It is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Those are the best movies ever.
Not a summer trilogy, but absolutely that.
But they have that epic. That was back when we also got good, fun movies at Christmas time. Remember when Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings released in time for the holidays? Those were the good old days, Justin. The good old days. But yes, that is my ultimate movie. So all 3 of them in succession.
Good one.
The long cut, the long director's cut, not the theatrical.
The extended.
So.
Yeah.
I just discovered.
I did. Go ahead.
Oh my God. I just discovered, which I did not know, that there are extended versions of some of the Harry Potter movies available now to stream, which was very exciting in our family because we all rewatched the Harry Potter movies. Now we're making our way through the Avenger movies, which I do not need to see any extended version of the Avenger movies, but the extended Harry Potter was good.
Well, if you were to watch the extended versions of Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and the Marvel Cinematic Universe back to back to back to back to back, we might have a vaccine by the end of that. Maybe, I don't know. God willing. One way.
Or I would be past. I can't imagine.
I can't either. Well, Mary, it's been such a joy talking to you, as always. And if this
anytime.
And if the technical difficulties had not driven you away, I hope you will be back. It's a 16-week series. There's 14 weeks to go. And I want to tell our readers, thank you for watching Bridesmaids. Thank you for watching along with us. This is just week 2 in a 16-week series. And here is what is ahead for week 3. This is the week of movies that were released between May 15th and 21st, between 1975 and 2019. It was a very competitive week with movies including the 1980 Fame, Annie, the 1982 Annie, both of those abysmally remade. We went with the originals. The Road Warrior, Moulin Rouge, What About Bob and Top Gun? But in the end, it came down to two movies, both franchise films, both superb examples of filmmaking, The Empire Strikes Back and Mad Max Fury Road. That is the second Star Wars or the fifth Star Wars, depending on how we're numbering these things, and the fourth film in George Miller's dystopian action franchise. The winner, drumroll please, was Mad Max Fury Road. Bit of a surprise. I mean, these are both, I love both these movies. Empire is a tough, formidable contender, but this, I think Mad Max Fury Road is just an acknowledged classic just 5 years after it was released. And that is our winner. And we will be back to discuss that same time this next week, hopefully with some very special guests as well. So look forward to it. Thank you, Mary, for being here. Thank you to all who watched along. And thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And good night.
Good night.